Hello, lovelies. So, I wanted to come on today and talk about jumping timelines. This is something that, with the full moon last night, it just seemed to be this piece of energetic material that was downloaded or dropped down into my body. It was something that my body really picked up on and was really sensing and processing and making sense of to bring forward to you today. So that's what I'm going to attempt to do here today with you. So part of me wanted to be able to demystify it. And I know that sometimes, when we talk about jumping timelines, people, are like, huh? Or talking about quantum physics, or people think it's woo. And so, really, jumping timelines is something that I've done throughout my life very quickly, just as manifesting things have been. And I think that's why I kind of received this, why I did receive this download was to bring it to people, um, just to be able to maybe put it in layman's terms is what I got from it. So, again, we're all energy and we have this electromagnetic field around us, which, attracts things to us and brings timelines to us. And really, what I look at a timeline is possibility. Now, as everyone probably knows, maybe not, I'm a psychic medium. And, when someone comes to me and I do a reading for them, what I see are pathways, timelines. There is this timeline that I'm seeing that you're currently on, but that timeline can shift to something totally different with one decision. And so for myself, I think I've been seeing that there's, and I teach it as well, jumping timelines as a process. But for some people, I know that may seem like complicated, or maybe I've overcomplicated it. And so this is why it's really interesting that I kind of got this download last night, and that's exactly kind of what they were showing me is that when you do a reading for someone, Joanne, you see different timelines that people can be on. That right now, here's a timeline you're walking, but everyone has free will. And so when someone makes a decision, that timeline shifts. So let me give you some examples, just to paint a clear picture. We've heard about this a lot. Someone who is about to get on a flight. They have a ticket in their hand and they're ready to get on that plane. And all of a sudden, something tells them their intuition is kind of coming through and saying, I don't think you should get on that flight. Sometimes it's not even intuition. Sometimes it might just be a thought that they're like, you know what? I don't think I want to leave my cousins quite, whatever the situation. I don't think I want to get on that plane quite yet. And they don't. And so, they're walking away and they're thinking, wow, like I can't get my money back. What a crazy, why would I just make that decision? And then, in the next day, they see on the news that that plane crashed. That was them jumping a timeline because they made that decision. Their timeline, the current timeline they were on, was that they would have been killed that night on that plane if they had gotten on that plane. And they made a different choice. And so their timeline shifted. And so this is what I mean by jumping timelines. And it's not this crazy process. It's not some woo-woo out there thing. It happens all the time. How a psychic medium or psychic is able to see the current path you're on is because there is an energetic path. And as a psychic, and anyone can do this if they connect to their own intuition, but we're able to see that energy. We're able to see the timeline energetically or feel that timeline. Just as I get downloads and all of a sudden it's like, okay, here's something like a little disc or movie is put into my mind, and here's some information for you, Joanne. So it's all energy, and our timelines are energetic. And when we don't want to be on a particular timeline, we can jump that timeline. And really, it's a decision. So now, what about people that say, okay, I have a disease and I can't do anything about that? And what I would say to that is, yes, you can. And you can have a disease such as cancer, you have a diagnosis, and you might have even been told that you have a year to live. And you can jump that timeline. Absolutely, 100%. And that's what I know, and that's what I believe. And it is a choice. And how you can do that is by a few things. Now, the simple explanation to that would be make a decision. And people would be yelling at me and going, "What do you mean make a decision? It's not my choice to have cancer." No, it's not. Absolutely not. But here's your path, here's your timeline. This is what you have right now. Now, definitely here is the ball of wax here, or the bowl of wax, or whatever the saying is. Here's where it gets complicated. Jumping the timeline is not, but it's not everything is just in this neat little jar or container, and it's like, okay, make a decision that you don't want to have cancer and that you want to jump timelines. It's not simple when it comes to that, because there's other things that come into play. And and part of those things that come into play are blockages within the energetic body, blockages within the mind and within your aura, and we could go into soul records, blockages in there that have been carried through lifetimes. We can then talk about lineage. All of that stuff plays a role, plays a part in it. So it gets a little trickier when we're talking about disease, but it's not impossible. Absolutely not. What you need to do when we're talking about shifting a timeline when we have a disease is that we need to first, what I like to do, and I've talked about it on my channel, is the body mind mapping and assessment. I think that's important for people that have blockages in their energy centers, that they're holding on to grief, um, shame, guilt that they may not be aware of or conscious of. And so being really certain that we are aware of those things, because those things play a huge role in our energy centers and in the ability to quantum leap. And let me give you an example about that. If I'm someone who doesn't believe in, let's say I'm someone who just doesn't believe that I can heal myself, then you're going to have a problem jumping into another timeline where you are disease and pain free. Right? Makes sense, doesn't it? If you don't, excuse me, if you don't believe something, how can you change that? And so then looking at that belief, that's a blockage. That's a blockage somewhere within your being. And so that could be something that, your grandma used to say, or something, it could be, something that your parents told you and created a saying all through your life. So there are things like that that stop you from jumping timelines. And so when I talk about the body mind mapping and assessment, that piece of it is to be able to bring to your awareness and to your conscious mind the things that are holding you back or things that prevent you from shifting into a different reality or jumping timelines or becoming the person that you desire to be. It's not all just fluff and manifesting and this and that. It's a physical thing where you have to be able to find within the body where those blockages are and know that it's a blockage. It's something that stops you. You could be the most spiritual person on the planet and you could believe in all of this stuff. And then, something happens to you, you get a diagnosis, you lose a child or a parent, and then all of a sudden that sends you spiraling downward and you don't see a way out of it, but there is always a way out of it. So, again, when I do my Elevate sessions or when I do my body, mind, and mapping sessions, I always first look into that stuff. Is where in the body are you blocked? What energy centers are blocked? If we talk about the crown chakra as being our connection to divinity, or the third eye chakra being the connection to our intuition, but we have a blockage in our heart chakra, uh, then how can energy flow? How can we get to that connection to source when there's a blockage, when there's an energetic blockage? There's a cage here, a block, a fence, and the energy has nowhere, it gets stuck because there's something that continually holds it down. So, but there's a solution, and that's the good news to that is that a blockage can be cleared easily. And so looking at those parts of us that need to be cleared, that need to be released so that we can clear this energy so that it's free flowing. Um, I was diagnosed twice in my life with one was fibromyalgia and the second was epilepsy. And I very specifically remember I was 45 at the time. 45 was I was on a path and on one timeline that with this diagnosis knocked me out of that timeline and um and so really when I was going along this path and the doctor or the neurologist said to me, okay, so you have, epilepsy. Do you want the red or the blue pill? And I said, well, I don't want either of them. And then he said, okay, well, there's no point in you being here. See you later. It was in that moment where I went, no, 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 no. I don't, I'm not on this path. No, I don't have epilepsy. No, I'm not taking your pill. No, I will figure this out myself. That shifts the timeline because I could have taken one of those pills and I could have become very sick, very ill. And in fact, I probably would have began having more seizures than I was having. But instead, I walked and left that projected timeline and walked on to another one instantly. Now, of course, it took me 3 years of having seizures and different blackouts and different bizarre things that were happening during that time. But after 3 years, never again. So really, yes, it was the symptoms took 3 years to obliterate, and um, and after that, then I just walked away. But literally, it was a decision in that moment when I said, no, I'm not taking either pill. Thank you. Bye. That shifted the timeline. So there's nothing there's nothing really magic here. There's no magic. There's no nothing really hard to figure out, and there's nothing complicated to where you have to sit there and go to a quantum physics school for 10 years to be able to jump timelines. You can jump timelines whenever you want, and truly, with your whole body, you make a decision. You make a choice in that moment. And even the people saying, okay, but I have a disease. I have a diagnosis. So even let's say you have the diagnosis of cancer. I can't beat that. Number one, you can, and it has been done time and time again, and I've seen it time and time again. But let's just say that the disease wins. There's still a different timeline that you could choose and be on, because if you are in a timeline of, I was just given this diagnosis and my life is over, and so you live the rest of your days out in pain and suffering, or you choose to embrace it, you choose to do the things that you can to make the most of your days that you have, there's still a difference in the timeline, isn't there? There's this choice or that choice. So you always have a choice. And there's always things you can do, which is to look at the guilt, the shame, the pain, the lineage. What are you holding on to and releasing all of that? Who do you need to forgive? Forgiving yourself, others, what is it? And you find that all out through the body mind mapping and assessment. That's one way of doing it, to be able to just bring your awareness. And people think, oh, well, that seems like nothing. And it's not. It is nothing. It's an easy process. And you don't have to be superhuman to do it. So, yes, you can jump timelines, you can change your life, you can walk a different path, and there's no magic to it. I've jumped through different timelines my whole life in matters of seconds, so it doesn't take long. The other thing is breath work and meditation, which through that's helping you to release and to move through blocked and stagnant, stuck energy. And another piece of advice there on how to do this is, if you are holding on to something that has happened to you in your lifetime, and it's something that maybe causes you shame, or something that you blame yourself for, or something that you just feel victimized by, you find someone who holds space with no judgment, that gives you the time to just that holds you in that space so that you can resolve that, the pain, the guilt, and whether that's talking about it, whether it's just crying and crying and crying, whatever it is that you need to do, you find someone that can hold that space for you and you release it, and you are free. You'll be free. So you can jump timelines. It's something that anyone can do, and it only takes a decision and a belief and faith, and you can jump timelines. So that's what I was given. That's what I'm here to say, and I hope that makes sense. So I'd love to hear in the comments if you've ever jumped timelines. And if you have questions, please ask in the comment section and I will answer you and respond to you. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, everybody. Bye.